that there's a lot of confusion about this. Can you elaborate a little more about what the confusion is?
Yeah, it goes a little bit deeper. I would say, for example, when people are really beginning to understand and apply this principle, I can just give you an example this way, where people will find that they do become aware. You know, you say to become conscious, you must identify your favorite ways of going unconscious and be vigilant in noticing them. So when people begin to see that, I think one of the tendencies, and I know this was true for me, is to get into a certain trap of validating or invalidating those choices. Meaning, oh, I really shouldn't do that, or, you know, I have every right to do that. And you can do that with feelings as well. You know, oh, I shouldn't really feel that way. That's not a big deal. I should just let that go. Or, you know, hey, I have every right to feel the way I feel, and just because I feel that way, it's therefore, you know, something you're going to have to deal with. How do you kind of step outside of that tendency when you begin to make things conscious of not getting into the validating, invalidating trap?
That's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So there's a couple of things that have to happen. You know, the next principle is the principle of witnessing that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. And in order to do that, really, you have to watch with curiosity and without an agenda. So if you're watching, if you're being aware, and you are starting to take what you're aware of and deciding what pile it goes into, the good pile or the bad pile, or looking at it in terms of, oh, somebody is telling me I can't do this or I have to do this. See, you're adding something. That isn't pure awareness. That is sort of getting into judging it and all kinds of other stuff.
It's kind of problem solving in a way, isn't it? I mean, it's
see, this is what I mean when I say you don't have to analyze things, you don't have to evaluate them. All you have to do is watch. There's another part of you that just figures it out. It's the same part of you that grows your hair or beats your heart, but it's also the part of you that knows how to drive after you've learned without thinking about it, or knows how to play a musical instrument. You know, when you first learn to play a musical instrument, if for those who have, you know, you have to remember where to put your finger at all the time. You know, there's a bunch of things you think of as you're doing it. But nobody could get up there and go boo-ba, you know, if you had to think of every note and any more than you could think about how to raise your arm by thinking about all the muscles. It just happens naturally once you know how to do it.
But it's out of that internal, you know, I think was it Alan Watts who talked about the inner genius, you know, the inner wisdom that we all discard or disregard. You know, we don't pay attention to that part of us that is far wiser than what we're capable of doing on a conscious level. You know, consciously, we're saddled with our...
What I'm saying, it really cuts through a whole lot of stuff. People come to us very often, and I think this is partly what you're talking about. They come to us and they think, well, this is so complicated. This is so hard. I mean, okay, if I'm going to have choice, then I've got to look at all the choices, and I've got to look at every choice and compare it to every other choice, and figure out which one is a better choice, and how would I know? I mean, is that really better, or do I just think it's better? And I don't know, my mom said that wasn't a good choice, but I kind of like it. And then somebody else said it was not a good choice, and there was another choice. You know, and people, they try to think their way through it. And what I'm suggesting is that all that complication, I mean, it's not like that, you know, you go to the store and you're going to buy a computer and you just sort of intuitively pick a computer. That's not what I'm saying. Obviously, if you're going to decide on a computer or a car or something, you have criteria for what you want, and you look and see if what you're looking at matches it. And if it does, you get it. And if it doesn't, you don't, or you change your criteria. I'm not talking about that so much. I'm talking more about the way you create your life. If you observe how you're creating how you feel, in other words, the internal representations you make in your head directly generate your feelings. If you watch yourself do that, you don't have to sit there and say, okay, was that an internal representation that was good or not? you'll just know. Trust me, you will know. Um, um, and all that internal map of reality stuff that creates your life, if you watch it, the parts of it that don't work fall away, and you don't need to analyze them. You don't need to do anything with them except be aware. I mean, if you want to analyze them too, fine. But I find that people, when they get into analyzing, they're not really watching anymore.
Yeah, they're slowing the process down. I know for me that was an issue too. It's just getting out of the way of the process. You know, is
Yeah,
advice I give people a lot. Don't get stuck in the analysis part of it. Just let it happen.
Yeah, again, analysis is another one of the booby prizes, because it's part of the knowing. You know, like I said, knowing is the booby prize. I'm not saying that analysis is bad or
Right.
wrong, or that I never analyze things. But when I told that story about how I had that fight with the girlfriend over the bed and so on, I didn't go out and sit in that chair and analyze how I was feeling.
You just
I
watched.
just observed it. I just paid attention to it. And as I paid attention to it, because it was a harmful feeling, it was not good for me physiologically, it was not good for me emotionally, it was not good for me relationally. As I watched it, it just fell away. In fact, it fell away so quickly that I kind of went, what happened? Where did it go? I was like, hey, I was watching that. It's sort of like,
Yeah.
when somebody changes the channel
Turns
and
the
you're
TV
watching
off,
it
yeah.
and you say, wait a minute, change it back. I was watching that. But
Well, that brings up a question I wanted to ask you is, do you think, and I guess this is maybe a rhetorical question, but do we get kind of fixated and addicted to being steeped in it rather than watching it? I mean, sometimes it's kind of fun to be in a place of anger and
Absolutely.
victim and woe is me and
absolutely.
the
As
games
you
people
know,
play.
I sometimes get in that place.
I don't know what
where-
you're talking about, Bill.
There are things that happen around here that I don't like, and I will rant about them for a while. But while I'm ranting, I'm watching myself rant, and I'm not doing it unconsciously. And at a certain point, I decide not to do it anymore. And
But
I
when
mean,
you're going
just-
through that, can you say to yourself, I am going to just kind of get in and be angry for a few minutes? Is
Yeah,
that-
you could do that.
Yeah.
The thing is that, you see, if you're watching it, you see the consequences of it. It's very clear. I mean, everybody's had the experience of being overly emotional in some way and having no choice over it. There's a difference, though, in allowing yourself, and as an emotion comes up, to feel it and be it and get into it, even if it's a quote-unquote negative emotion, but you know you're doing it and you have control over it. I don't think there's any emotion I could have at this point that I couldn't stop just like that and shift out of.